some of these attributes we had annotated, and then we kind of revised our stance on them. Originally we were thinking, well, they allow null, so we should have that in the API, but then we sort of revised the thinking to, well, you wouldn't use the attribute at all if you were going to pass null, so we should really express the intent and say that they should both be non-null. And it looks like we never revisited this one.
Which attribute in particular?
The assembly targeted patch band attribute, the one at the top.
And the ambiguous implementation?
No, that one, the exception, I sort of skipped past that one.
Yeah, the
second type at the top.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Exception, not attribute.
So I may have not written this up as a rule, but like there was something where we. Let me actually search the notes for an attribute. So we said the default value attribute constructor should take a non-null type. That's I think the only one we have.
Right, no, default value should take. Oh, non-null type, right? Non-null type. But
yes.
We were talking about this with some other ones as well. All right, let me rephrase. I believe that this should take a non-null string and return a non-null string.
Right, and so what should happen when you actually pass in null? Will be converted?
I think nothing. I think, well, if you pass in non-null and you override the warning, then you'll get a null out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes back to the question of intent.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, like not putting a question mark there is effectively the only way to enforce non-null for those guys, because the constructor never runs unless you query the attributes, in which case blowing up is a really inconvenient spot to do that.
Whereas at the bottom for targeted patching opt-out attribute, I mean, I'm not sure we use this attribute anymore anyway, but if we did, I could imagine wanting to use it without a reason.
Yeah.
This attribute isn't like we don't still use this for anything, do we?
Targeted patching opt-out, or the targeted patch ban?
Targeted patching opt-out, is that still I'm just for my own edification.
So I don't remember the actual, like, honestly, like the factor, the way I remember this was basically a way to allow cross-module inlining for NGen. So everything that was marked with this attribute basically allowed inlining, so that targeted patching effectively doesn't apply to that guy.
I think we ignore this on that core.
I'm pretty sure we do, yeah. I think this was one of those crazy JIT features that I think we no longer care for. But totally good follow-up.
I think actually we probably do the same for the targeted patch band one too. I don't think that has an impact on.
I don't even know what that one was for. The other one I at least know what it's for. Sorry, I have to slightly change on my monitor things it is, because it's thinking is on the right hand side, which completely screws with my ability to get my mouse. That seems all right. All right, so that means, so I took a note that basically almost all attributes should probably take non-null values. Do you want me to still call this particular attribute out, or do we think the general rule makes more sense?
Why don't you call these out? I'm not sure that it's a broad statement that we can make, but for most of these assembly ones, I believe it's the case. But like for assembly metadata, seems reasonable that you could pass null as the value, for example. And I don't think we prohibit that. Or maybe we do, I don't remember.
But that one we were saying shouldn't be. No. That one we were saying should allow null.
Should or should not?
Should, right? Yes. Unless I'm totally targeted patching opt-out, you said that you'd think that null would be a reason.
Oh, that one I think, right, that one I think should.
Okay.
Although it doesn't really matter because I don't think it's used for anything. So
No, I think the reason is just for review. So not passing in anything is reasonable, although I think we don't do that. I think if you look through the framework code base, if you actually use the attribute, we auto-generated the string, something along the lines of like, this API is perf critical, so suck it up or something like that.
all right, so maybe we require it even though there's no reason to use it.
Yeah, I think it's probably more aligned with what the intent was. I would generally say for an attribute like this, if you really want to allow null, you just have an overload that doesn't take an argument. Like, passing a null seems silly. Okay, sorry, I'm scrolling again for the diff, but I think this makes sense.
So a lot of the stuff in system runtime compiler services doesn't do any validation for null or non-null, and a lot of things here will null ref if you pass in null. So most of the things we just define as non-nullable.
Makes sense.
Are any of these key results place where we want to say key result is not null? Like give it a not null constraint.
I think it has to match the constraint of T result or a value task.
Yeah, pretty much all these are whatever the user provided.
Okay. And I mean, most of these we don't exactly expect users to be using.
Right. Most of these things, like T state machine, is generated. The T is generated by the compilers. So if you're doing that manually, like, and you get null refs, that's on you.
Yeah. You're doing that manually. Anything you do is on you.
Yeah.
So these class questions are going to be removed, I guess?
Yeah, we just changed this to, what did I just change it to? Hold on.
Oh wait, no, class
No,
question is fine.
conditional.
I keep thinking object question and class question.
Conditional weak table, you
That's fine.
change it to T key being class and
Right.
T value class question mark, and then we added a question on every instance of T.
Yeah,
on the try get value for.
We just based on the last discussion, we proactively revisited all of our class question marks, and most of them ended up getting tweaked.
Okay.
So this is now where T key is class, but T value stays class question mark.
Yep.
Okay.
So what is the class bang equivalent now? It's not nullable, one word, or?
So not null means that it's either a non-nullable value type or a not null reference type.
Right. Not null is the replacement for colon object, not for colon class.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, as a result of that change, we ended up then using question marks in a couple cases, but not in the public API, I believe. So it doesn't matter for this.
Yep.
Sense. So the formatable string factory, like, don't we usually allow the params also to be null, or did we say we don't allow the params itself to be null because the compiler will fill it in with an empty array?
No, we generally don't allow params to be null. In fact, I think in this case we check for it. One second. Yeah, we throw if arguments is null.
And let me write this out as a general rule because I think that should be should. Right. Isn't Strongbox supposed to be not null? Wouldn't that be just null for the whole box?
No, it's not constrained to just value types.
I see. So you have a strong
Strong
box often. Basically, you have it still a type reference type essentially.
Also, nullable int.
What the heck is the description on reference assembly attribute for? Didn't even know we had that.
I'm not sure. This is probably another one of those where I have no idea what it's used for. But it's probably another one where we'd want to make it non-null.
Well, in that case, you would kind of assume that the first constructor calls the second one, right? So it's kind of debatable, but yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, I think this is probably used for the exception that we throw when the loader tries to load a reference assembly.
But you're probably right. It means considering that there wouldn't be a description when the first constructor is used, so that the return description is probably null. You might as well allow null in the constructor.
Yeah, that seems generally right.
What get an initialized object? So, like, again, like if I put the nullable int,
Get an default event question, I assume.
Which would be null, right?
It's kind of a weird state because it's not actually null, but
yes.
Well, it
I
kinda
keep
is
on
null,
pushing
right?
on this int. Question mark because it just feels like it's a lot of mess.
What class is it?
Runtime helpers.
Unless it doesn't allow.
That one actually looks like it returns 0 for an int question mark.
Which would then be boxed to an
Boxed in, right?
boxed int. Okay.
Why would an uninitialized nullable int be 0 though? That seems very weird.
Probably because I would guess it has to do with how you're getting the uninitialized, what's going on.
Anyway, if it returns 0.
Yeah. Can't exactly pass in a string question. So. But what does it return for like string or any reference type?
I presume it calls like it creates an object, but it doesn't call the constructors.
It throws an exception for string. Uninitialized strings cannot be created.
It's not documented.
Yeah.
I was hoping it's value type.
Yeah, wait, so seems like the annotations are correct then, right? The runtime wrapped exception we said like you can throw null, and that would be wrapped then in this guy from C++.
C++ literally throws null, and then presumably the runtime will catch that and wrap. But
Right.
I don't have C++ CLI installed, so I can't.
Oh, I think in your case, like it would actually crash too, right? Like I think you tried it in C++. And
Well, C++ crashed because it's an uncaught exception. If you can catch null.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it would have worked probably.
Runtime helpers get object value can return null.
So which one?
Runtime helpers
Yeah,
get object value.
Can return now.
What does it even do then? What is this?
If the input is null, I think it returns null.
But we said it doesn't want null as an input.
Well, I just did object x equals null. Runtime helpers get object value x.
Object question mark in and out. There's enough of it.
Yeah,
Or something.
null if the input is not null if the input is
Not null if not.
yeah, not null.
Names are great, guys. Names are great.
Okay, so we said should accept no.
And that's if you pass in what?
No.
No.
But get uninitialized object has an
Not
type.
get uninitialized object, get object value.
Oh, get
Yeah.
object value.
What is this? Not null if not null.
Yeah.
Does this function either like
If you pass a box null,
it
will return null.
All right, I added that note. The runtime wrapped exception. Do we leave it at not null or do we allow null? What do we?
I think the thrown object can.
That's C++ CLI.
Yeah, because if you can throw null, then
wrapped exception. If well, because you could do it with just IL.
Perhaps we take non-null and then turn nullable. From manage to like, from this C# including plus.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
All right, I took a note that we want to test that and then mark it as such. Special attribute.
Yeah, because wrapped exception is just the thrown object. So if we accept null as the input, then wrapped exception itself needs.
Yeah, I suppose they're the same thing. They're just named badly, right?
Yeah.
They actually respect the suppress IL doesn't.
Some people do,
I think
Well, this
ILDASM
doesn't allow you
respects
to-
it. Yeah, I think ILDASM itself respects it.
Okay.
It just
So that's
won't
it.
work on the doesn't the assembly or what?
I think so. But I don't think .peak or
And if one,
ILSpy or anything.
well, you know, with this attribute, why do you even need an obfuscate? It says don't decompile me.
Should take an attribute pretty, please. True or false. So Strongbox of T, should the T be marked in any special way? We can't, right?
No, it's correct as is. If someone wants to store nulls in it, they would create it with a nullable T, and if they don't want to, they'd create it with a non-nullable T. Although the public T value has a maybe null attribute on it, because if you just say new Strongbox of something that's non-nullable dot value, you're going to get back null.
Right.
Alt T.
Does the compiler actually pass in null for transform names when you don't give any names, or does it give you an empty array?
Well, if you don't pass in any names, I think the attribute as a whole would never be applied. Would be my guess.
According to the comment on tuple element names attribute, it uses null.
For the unprovided name, right?
Right.
But if you didn't provide any names, then presumably the attribute would not be applied at all.
I would assume so.
So I think the array would never be empty. It would either be
One.
yeah, at least one element.
Right, so the compiler doesn't apply anything if you don't have any names, and it will put individual names as null if they're missing.
Makes sense.
So I would think that maybe we want transform names itself to be non-nullable.
Which it is.
Oh, right, question mark in places.
The elements can be null, but transform names itself
Yeah.
cannot.
We just need like a nullable array wrapper type to help make this easier.
Totally bad things happen if you pass it now. All right, my favorite namespace, CRs. Do we support CRs at all, Stephen, on CoreCLR, or did we completely make that no ops?
Reliability contract is.
I thought.
Yeah, and I thought critical finalizer object was still respected. Or no, actually we might have avoided that too, because I think we said we no longer guarantee destruction and shutdown.
Yeah. I think like that was the thing Jan said is like, you know, the causes hangs and like what do you care about it? Like the OS will free the resources anyway.
Hopefully.
Well, it's not a maintained OS resource, you already have a problem in your architecture. But yeah. Exception dispatch info. Makes sense.
To be sure you can't get in here from like throwing null and C++ CLI or anything like that.
No, because this one only takes an exception. So you can only pass in.
So the framework is never passing in null.
Right.
I mean, if you got a null, and if the framework which we have to test will wrap it in runtime, that runtime exception object, then the exception you would get here would be that runtime exception object around null.
Right.
I'm updating VS so that I can check. Well, I should more accurately say VS is forcing me to update before I can check.
Almost sounds like a complaint. That's a feature. All right, interrupt services. This is going to be a fun namespace.
Everybody loves null.
Can the target of a GC handle actually be null?
Yes, I believe so.
Why for external exception is the exception allowed to be null? Wouldn't you just call the constructor without the exception parameter?
Because that's what we said earlier. For all exceptions, basically allow exception to be null,
Okay.
inner exception to be null.
Okay.
And to answer your question, yeah, you can pass null and you can get null out of a GC handle.
Okay.
Getting null out makes a lot of sense, at least for like handles. So I'm not entirely sure why the constructors allow it, but
Well, it looks like the constructors allow it because they think that internal alloc and is pinnable, which are both internal JIT calls, allow it. But I'm not sure if they actually do.
oh, they do. I just tried it.
I mean, this goes also back to like what your code usually thinks, right? If most of your variables you would ever pass in would not be marked as not nullable,
Yeah, I mean, I think I can totally imagine a situation, we probably even have some, where you allocate a GC handle and then fill it in later.
yeah. Yeah, that seems fine. It's also plumbing, like. Was an object handler one of those guys that always blow up on .NET Core now? I think the methods was not supported, right? Probably doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It stores the value passed to the constructor and returns it out of unwrapped. It doesn't really do anything.
I just mistyped the URL source of .NET by adding an additional period, and now on a website that says nothing to see, move on. What was that object handler? Oh yeah, even the full framework version doesn't do anything. So that seems to suggest that that is fine.
Do we actually expect the sender of a callback to never be null?
Sorry, the sender of a callback. Where do you see that out there?
For on deserialization, object sender.
Well, I would assume that this is filled in by the serialization framework. I don't even know what that guy would be. It's probably the instance of the parameter.
Well, I think it's just a standard like event. That's the event pattern, right? Object sender, event args.
Right.
But I thought we normally allowed the sender to null in those cases.
Yeah, I mean the sender in normal events, yes, but like I think in this case it's not just an event, right? It's like this is an interface that's called by infrastructure, right?
Actually, I'm looking at 2 cases where null is explicitly passed.
Okay.
I believe the only 2 cases where it is invoked in the entirety of .NET Core, it passes.
That seems to suggest that maybe nullations should be allowed.
Okay.
What is that called? It looks like the only call sites are passing in now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That speaks somewhat.
Why does toString return null but not?
Because toString on object returns string ?
Oh, because we just call object toString.
Right. Well, I mean, this is an interface, but yeah, the one implementation we have.
But
Where is
wouldn't that be null in is null out?
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, toString is free
No,
to return
that's
null,
not how it works.
right?
Okay.
The toString itself, you can implement it.
So the iFormatter converter, the first convert object, the value, non-null actually.
Like the convert method?
Yeah.
No, they both throw for null value.
And that's in
Like
the documentation.
I don't know if there's documentation, I haven't looked, but it's in the one implementation of iFormatter converter that we have.
In framework, there are much more complicated call paths to get to the serialization or ID serialization back, but eventually all paths only ever pass. Well designed.
Cool.
In fact, if you take object interrogate, must be null.
And Tanner, at least the docs for formatter, the docs for iFormatter converter.convert don't say anything, but the docs for formatter converter.convert say that it throws an argument null exception if value is null.
Okay.
So in other words, all annotations are correct.
Correct.
What about I save serialization data?
Yeah, that was the one. I think this probably cannot be null because this is the actual object that was deserialized.
Unless you deserialize the question mark.
Well, it's the safe serialization data, right? So
We don't call it at all in .NET Core. In .NET Framework, it's called in one place that has an assert that the object is not null.
yeah. That seems good enough. Cool.
I don't remember how all this stuff works. Serialization info dot assembly name. Could that ever be null for something? Like, could you serialize a type that wasn't in an assembly? Probably not. Wouldn't make any sense to serialize a generic type.
We had all sorts of fun questions about when can you not be in an assembly last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems almost like reflection. Unfortunately, it decided to be ill-defined there. Seems like a general sound assumption that you can always walk up into the assembly that contains the type.
So property setter for that one. Throw if null is given to it.
For serialization info dot assembly name?
Yeah.
Why is it settable to begin with? I mean, you pass in the type, right? So clearly that hopefully would be the type's assembly name and the type's full type name.
But the return value will come from type.module.assembly.full name is annotated as possibly written. And then the banging completes the session. It's sort of maybe like null might leak out into generate cases, but the expected values null will not.
Yeah, it would seem like that the type that this guy. So basically, it would. So the constructor assigns these guys based on what you just said, right?
Yeah. So it's simply that you're allowed to replace it.
Right.
You can't replace it with null. We use the bang operator, so we believe it. We believe it will never have null, but Tyler warns us it might.
Yeah, I mean, like this goes back to like what types can you pass in, right? Basically, the types that you need to pass in order to get the module name or the assembly name to be null would be things like generics, which makes no sense to deserialize.
But the serialization info of type and converter doesn't have any checks on what the type is.
Sure.
Other than not null. And
yeah, this goes to like we don't validate everything, but like.
So you're unlikely to want to do it, but if you passed in the generic that belongs to no assembly, null would come out. Yeah. I'm fine with saying.
Yeah, I'm venturing a guess and saying like when you pass it null, probably other things will go down badly afterwards. I'm a bit surprised there's no overload for string, but I guess that's just the object one.
Yeah. I mean,
what does add value do when you pass in null? Like it clearly doesn't call add value with null comma the type of value, right? Well, basically, I think like add value that just takes.
Value is null. It cascades with type of. Otherwise, it uses.
Okay, I guess that's not insane actually.
Framework display maybe no.
Because you
There's
didn't
no way to
set it.
set it, but
No, you
I
set
see
it.
what it said. It's a manual.
You get what you put in.
I understand.
Holy fuck.
Demanded.
I like it. Everything's nullable. Like, you're on your own, man. You're on your own.
They're not required by the constructor, so if they set them, they didn't set them. Somebody can throw a new security exception.
The user's name is Jared Parr.
Looking at these APIs, it's kind of surprising that security ever worked. Does not seem like an API that is setting you up for success. Cryptographic. What the heck is insert? Some arbitrary string you can have.
Insert into the format.
Someone decided, this is long before my time, that constructor to cryptographic exception just calls string.format with those two arguments.
Oh, it's the argument for the format string, I see.
Yes.
Sure.
So it expects a format that has only colon zero or bracket 0 in it.
That seems completely reasonable.
Yeah.
No.
Somebody saved 8 characters or something. Go to fallback.
Maybe they should have just called string.format before college.
What is the decoder fallback buffer? Is that a reference time? It is, right? Yeah, seems like it. Why would that be not nullable, but the fallback is nullable?
The fallback buffer fills in with the invalid bytes. Fallback is
The get a fallback buffer says if it hasn't built one yet, it builds one and returns it to you.
Okay.
As long as we said that decoder fallback dot create fallback buffer is not allowed to return null, then APIs. And we said full decoder.
I'm glad that it's consistent at least between decoder and encoder. It's good to know.
Is good.
And it's a lot of APIs for fallbacking.
Make an encoding without a name.
So why are all these names nullable? Didn't we say we usually return empty strings for those? It was the same thing they had on, what was it, the text formatter info or whatever, where like there were like a ton of names and we just said, well, if they're not there, you just return empty string.
You can create custom encoding.
It's like it should return the empty string instead of null.
Text in.
Well, this comes from a internal type, which has a structure that says it accepts. I think we're building them.
So we're not normalizing them here. We just literally return them as they are. That's
Jeremy, which type might return null?
So, like, I looked at system text encoding name, which says it gets it from code page data item.display name, which is marked as nullable because the constructor for code page data item says it takes a nullable display name. I only see one place that builds it, and I don't see how it would get null, so I don't know why this got marked the way it did.
Certainly looks like it. Well, that's unfortunate, but
Display
that's
name, at least, to me, looks like non-null.
A variety of these look like they should be null.
So this one may need to be reviewed.
So which one should be not null?
Most of them. So,
Like encoding name seems like it should be non-null. I mean, they're all virtual, so technically you could return null from anything if you overrode this, but this is where it comes down to intent. And I don't think we ever return null from any of our implementations.
I guess the real question is if you just created a custom encoding, would they default to null?
I believe the answer is no, because the base implementation, it says if data item, it's just looking at data item, sorry. I don't see how it would. We can certainly try.
You gave it just called the. If you extended the default constructor and you never gave it a code page, then presumably we just pick code page 0. So we probably get the invariant culture answers for all these questions if you never overrode them. As long as if a custom encoding that doesn't use the code page specifying constructors gets non-null answers for this, then we should probably just say that they're all non-null.
There's something more complicated I would need to do, probably need to ask Tarek, but if I just derive from encoding and access encoding name, I get an exception.
Okay. Maybe we want to look at this one offline.
All right. Noted. Getting coding can actually return now. Didn't all the other ones not throw when you pass an invalid encoding?
Hard to make it.
So, Emo, what was the question?
So all the other encoding methods that basically get encoding, they throw when the encoding is invalid. That's all.
So, wait, which one are we
I'm
looking at?
pretty
Encoding
sure
without
for
a
these,
table?
the idea is that you can provide an encoding provider that only knows how to handle certain code pages, and so you return null if you can't handle it, and then the caller like deals with that. I think. Yeah, like there's a loop in get encoding from provider that loops through all the providers for each one calling get encoding. The first one that returns non-null wins, and if one returns null, it just tries the next one.
Yeah, that's certainly also how it's documented. Right, that seems like
In
too much.
system text encoding, one of the overrides, so code pages encoding provider, if you give it a code page that doesn't fit in, you short it. Just
What?
Let's take any reference parts.
There's some strings in various places.
There's get through now.
I mean, that looks right to me.
These aren't. It doesn't take it. Types. Oh, try get runat. Should we accept a nullable input? It does. Okay. Come on.
All right, our favorite type, string builder. So the string builder that takes a value and an index probably throws when you pass in non-zeros, I suppose.
I believe that's right.
if value is null, start index is 0, and chart content. Otherwise,
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't remember. What did we say for f-Harmon provider? Should it accept it now or not?
I think we said no for the providers. Gosh, why does this have 3 versions with different numbers of args and then a params?
So that it optimizes for 1, 2, and 3 without having to allocate an array.
yeah, because we don't have param span yet.
In the notes, it says all I format providers should be nullable.
Yeah.
Oh, we did say that.
Yeah,
We did say
Okay.
that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Thought we said the opposite. Okay.
No, I format providers should be nullable. I thought we had said culture infos should be non-null. Santi and I were having a disagreement of memory on GitHub.
Yep. I thought we said that culture info should be nullable, and whenever culture info is null, we should default to current culture.
Yeah.
But that is what we agreed to. I'll have to go and take a look at the YouTube videos.
All right. It noted it.
You noted that the append format provider should be null. That's what you're just saying,
Yeah.
right?
And I think format should not be null. That's what we also said. Params look
Correct.
consistent. The args look consistent. Presumably the behavior of append join with a null separator is the same as concat. We just for each over the values and just append them all.
And probably append the separator, which takes a null itself, right?
Yeah, so it just does nothing. Yeah.
I think if the separator is null, it just uses string empty.
Yeah.
Correct.
So why does append? Oh, because we can't express that. I was thinking the append join for an enumerable should be an enumerable of nullable elements, but we can't express it because it's generic.
It could
And
be
I'm pretty sure
null.
we allow null, and if you give back null, I think we just don't do anything.
Yeah.
So when we're done with this, I found out the timer.
Money
Not that
well
a while.
spent.
Don't keep us waiting.
I was gonna wait until we were done with string builder.
Okay.
Yes, it's suspense. There, we're done string building.
Okay, so
And new string builder, to string, return string that empty.
No, most of our string overrides return string, not string question mark.
Right, I'm just making sure that new string builder, not to string, returns empty. And also with the weird, what indices do you want, given that you just built it?
Yes,
Even though it
Well, not
existed.
that's what I would assume, yes. All right.
So, if you throw an exception from C++ directly, like native code, it's always wrapped in a SEH exception, System Runtime Interrupt Service SEH, even if you're throwing null pointer. If you're throwing a managed exception of any type, it's wrapped in a runtime object, except for null pointer, which is transformed into null reference exception.
So it
So
can't-
throw
so-
null is the same as dereferencing null?
Which is also what C# does if you do throw null. So it's impossible for the runtime will never create a runtime wrapped exception, which is null. It will
In
either
which case, the
contain-
annotation we had was correct.
Yeah.
So toString returns empty when length equals 0. And it throws on the one that takes an index and a length, it throws the length is 0. The length is equal.
Making sure.
All right. Noted. Hash token.
I believe that safe weight handle one is out of date. I think that returns. No, you already passed it.
Oh,
Down below.
sorry.
Yeah, right. The highlighted line.
Yep.
I believe it now returns. There's no question mark on it. That was there because we didn't have a way to express differences between get and set allows you to set it to null, and then get manufactures a new one. But now that we have the maybe null, allow null attributes, this is now defined as non-null with a allow null for the setter.
Right. So I guess we will want to, once we get done with this, we will want to merge this PR and then rerun Gen API to get the attributes, right? And then review the attributes.
Yeah, although we might want to, I mean, there are time constraints involved, but ideally we would probably wait to review the attributes until we actually had a compiler that verified them.
Okay.
But maybe not. I mean, at that point it would just be bug fixes. We could probably do it all ahead of time and then deal with, one-offs here and there.
Okay.
So yeah, your plan sounds good.
Presumably weight handle extension then also returns a non-nullable safe weight handle.
yes, I believe that one changed as well.
And that safe wait handle should take a
No, that
null.
one stays taking a null.
Okay.
Yes, it returns. Get safe wait handle returns non-nullable.
We reached tasks. Good job.
Next question mark the right generic target.
What was your? What are you looking at, Jeremy?
The edits to the constructors that take a task or an action of object.
I think that's probably right.
And why is that all right? Because you pass in the object.
I guess because it says object, so it's the question mark's only weird when it's generic. That's when it is modifying value type. It says the word object. That just means anything and it can be null.
Yep. That just means anything that inherits from object.
Apparently, my reviewer brain is having trouble between the word object and the word. And there's no generic inference complications with object question mark. Like all the same generic inference rules apply.
There's no generic inference here because
it's statically typed as object.
No, but when somebody's writing a delegate to pass it in, or if they
No,
object question mark is a relaxation rule anyway.
But it's not a generic inference, it's just a conversion,
no,
right?
actually, so that's an interesting question.
It's just the normal covariance rules from delegate A to delegate type B.
Well, no, so that means I couldn't pass in a action of object.
correct.
Bang. Has to be an action of object question.
I mean, you can. You have to use an exclamation point.
Yes.
Yeah. Delegate
In general, these APIs, you're going to end up with a lot of exclamation points because, that case aside, most of the time you're passing in non-null state, and you're going to be using a lambda or something on, for the action, and you can see right there that you're passing in a non-null thing, and yet we have to bang away the argument to the delegate and the lambda because there's no connection that the compiler can see between the action and the state.
Yeah, we said last time if this case is too prevalent, maybe we want another attribute that basically ties the argument of the delegate to the argument you pass in, but that seems fairly non-trivial to do for the compiler.
Yeah, making sure that if somebody calls this constructor and passes the bare name of a method group, is that going to compile, or are they going to have to wrap it in a lambda or use new action of object question mark wrapping that bare word so that the compiler knows what to do?
Well, I mean, they can always just
if
put a
that
bang.
method takes an object rather than object question mark, I believe they're going to have to use an exclamation point.
They would have to use an exclamation point in a different place. They'd have to use an exclamation point on the state instead of on the delegate. They have to use an exclamation point in one place.
If they were passing in a method group.
For the first argument, they would have to bang that.
So,
No. If it was just an action of object, everything is convertible to action of object.
No. This task takes an action object with question mark.
Yes.
It can pass null in,
yes.
Which means that it can pass as this action of object question mark something that takes object. The compiler will warn.
Oh yes, yeah. No, sorry. I thought you were saying that if you remove the question marks, and I was saying, well, if you remove the question marks, then you've just shifted the bang from one parameter to the other.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, that's true.
So if someone has if someone has a reachable method foo that takes object, no question mark, and they have nullability turned on, and they're currently calling this constructor, passing the bare word foo to get the method group and the automatic delegate instance based off that, they will now have this would induce a compile breaking change like all of nullability, and they'll have to go deal with that.
I'll have to go put a bang there. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not generic, I don't think there's anything better we can do.
So yes, I guess what I meant was implicit delegate capture covariance.
I mean, it's really not different from any other parameter, right? Because everything is fully instantiated. It just depends on where you get the wages from that you pass in here, right?
And then, Steve, are these constructors ever actually used, or are they just frameworky stuff?
The constructors are things that I wish we didn't have in the first place, but we do, and they're very rarely used.
Okay, so
Well, let me rephrase. They should be rarely used. Sometimes people get confused and they use them,
okay.
but it's rare that you should actually be.
So it's if they were using it, they're probably using a Lambda these days, and they're probably not using it anyway. So there's not really a concern.
Yeah, that said, the exact same thing shows up in APIs they should be using. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
same
general
question, just
Continue with, for example.
yeah, or start new. All those dreadful queues, work item, cancellation token.register. It's all the same thing.
Okay.
Any of the non-generic ones?
But really, their easier fix is just go put a question mark in there. Bingo targeting.
Yeah, basically either add a question mark somewhere or add a bang somewhere.
Return a null task from the function to run.
Null task, you can. Whether or not we should have allowed that, it basically ends up canceling the task, the operation.
Okay.
Okay. I guess that kind of makes
This is
sense.
fine.
This is fine. Oh boy.
And a null function from run, but you can't pass null. Can't pass null to wait all. Or wait on.
Right. The returning null from run was basically you execute some delegate and then you discover that you actually don't want to do anything asynchronously. You don't want to kick anything off, so you return null to say I'm canceled.
And not task.complete task.
Right, because then that would make the task that was returned from run. It would suggest that the whole operation had been completed rather than aborted.
Okay, maybe we should have had task.cancel task.
We do. It's called task.from canceled.
Okay. Anyway, that ship is sailed.
Think. All of those look sensible.
Hold on. Oh wait, never mind. The state is still generic, even though the task it's still. Yeah.
This is the exact same thing we just talked about, right?
Yeah. I'd been for some reason thinking that the generic task wasn't going to have this problem, but it.
Wait, but this continue with doesn't it takes a func which doesn't is a non-nullable task, right?
Yeah, the returning. Okay. So these continuous are accepting a task as in, not returning a task. The function here is accepting a task as input. The function isn't returning a task. Whereas those task.runs we were looking at earlier, the function was returning.
The return
func
wages here.
delegate was returning a task.
Generics are not great to read in signatures, I just realized. Items. Lost factory.
Roll over. What does task factory do if it has a null? But it returns you a null as well. Instead of
Well, it's. I mean, so this goes back to whether it's a design flaw or not. But you create new tasks like with Task Factory Start New. It uses current as whatever the current schedule is what it targets. So if you were to return task scheduler.default from scheduler, it would override that. So scheduler returns null to say, no, keep doing the target current. And there'd be no way to return current from the scheduler because it would be current at the time that you were accessing the scheduler property, not at the time that you were calling start new.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Now, this all gets back to whether that should have been the behavior to begin with, whether it should have targeted current instead of default.
Yeah.
We can go round and round on that one. I think we made a mistake, but it is what it is. This was a long time ago.
None of those continue with take states.
They're crispy to read now.
Oh, dear God.
But I think that is all the same stuff as before. Yeah. Except the null state, and we give you a null state. So I'm not trying to decompose that signature in my head. Same here. Same scheduler discussion. Get scheduled task and return now. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's only ever called by debuggers.
Finish tasks. Bad.
Finish system runtime.
Good point. You finished system runtime, so let's keep going.
1 second. I'm updating system runtime extensions to include attributes.
5, 4.
So we don't
3.
have
He
to
gave
go
you
over
5
this.
times the amount of time that you asked for.
Oh, Imo, thank you. I'm just finishing going through the diff. I'll build it and drop it. Shared drop it.
What's the shared drop? Was it scratch? You have a dump from the C# compiler, 450 megs. Crispy.
Seems rather small.
But only compiled called it probably when it crashed. That's the only thing we apply Nullable on right now. What the heck is Space Sniffer? Is that what I think it is? Like, you should use tabs, man. Frederick is saying, fun thing about these questionable meetings, you learn a lot of surprising, open paren, useless trivia about types you never use, smiley. Very true. That is very true.
You also get to see all the places where we messed up in the framework.
Which, I mean, I have to say though, like, as much as we nitpick things, like, all in all, like, if you consider the amount of APIs we have, it's still somewhat remarkable, surprising that it's that consistent. Like, in my own code base that I wrote, that the single person row that is like a fraction of the size, and not as nearly as consistent as we are in the framework. That is true, but it also shows you that you make a gazillion decisions every time you write code that is just within the scope of what you can see on the screen, right? So it's very hard to have consistency beyond that.
It's even more impressive when you consider that none of us sitting in this room were in this room. Right?
That's the other thing. Yeah, the board has changed a lot over the years, right? Like.
Okay.
So your seconds are somewhat of a.
They are like minutes.
Like if you give me like a 2-minute estimate, then we should stop the meeting and. You missed a lot, man.
You missed what?
You missed a lot. Like he hasn't even given me a drop yet.
Could we minimize
Right.
system runtime extensions and move to the next one?
Just gave you the drop.
There's no next one. This is it.
Oh, that's the end.
We don't have like. So where did you drop it?
I scratch to scratch safer and ref assembly is nullable.
Ah, yeah. Here we go. All right. Now, okay, let me throw this on the other side of the screen. So, how do I edit this guy now? Only I knew how the tool works. Oh, yeah, that's right. Move this guy. I drop in this guy. All right. Oh, do you want me to show attributes now?
Yes.
That might not actually work. I can try, but last time that I turned it on, it hung forever and didn't come back.
It seems like it's happening now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can try the following. I don't know what this bug is.
So maybe we can go without the attributes.
Can we open
Tomorrow we can review the attributes.
Can you open an
verbally.
ION Spy or something?
Let me just quickly do something.
So we couldn't get at the.
Or what if I?
What was that? And what was that?
Well, it's not. You have to review everything.
Yeah.
Oh, something has regressed. I don't know what it is, but like, yeah.
We can do it without the attributes or nulls by and then you can fix that tomorrow.
Well, I need to find out what the bug is. I'm not even sure it's an API review. I think this is probably a bug in CCI extensions that we introduced at some point, but somebody saw. No. Yeah, so I can do this, which is basically I can show attributes without doing a diff. It seems to work. All right, let's try this. Let me actually.
So apply policy didn't take it. We have said there are times when assembly name can be null. I assume those times don't apply to anything but past to create instance.
Yeah, so the only case where this can return null is for a generic parameter, right, which you can't do anything with.
I meant for assembly name.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So the only way you can get an assembly name null back is if you ask for a generic parameter, which you would never try to instantiate, right?
Right, you have to do a make generic type, right?
Yeah, you have to. Well, even then, like you would basically you would get dictionary, right? You may want to instantiate dictionary, but it makes no sense to instantiate T key.
Right.
Because basically it's the wrong thing to look at. I think these object arrays seem consistent with what we had in reflection, where we basically allowed them to be null. The only
args, yeah.
Yeah, for those guys here. For those guys, it seems like that should not be the case. We should probably make them non-null.
Really?
Well, that's what we said for params.
Yeah, I know. But...
Yeah, because the C# compiler passes array in it.
Yes. I mean, technically speaking, null is logically the same as empty array here, right? It just, I think for non-params ones, you can make the case that this saves you typing, right? But I also don't care that much, given that this is not an API you actually use 500 times a day. What is this thing called? Execute assembly, whatever.
By name. And there is 2 instances.
All right. I almost get the impression that lots of stuff is deprecated.
It's almost like hash domain isn't used in .NET Core.
Does it actually matter if we annotate any of the app domain stuff?
Some of it still is used.
Target framework name can be null.
Yes. We basically said that that's because the way these guys work is that you basically look at the entry assembly, you look at the attribute that's applied, so you can either have no entry assembly, or you can have the attribute not being applied. So, we said last time, like we should probably make so that you always have valid entries for some of them, but it's like that's not an annotation problem, it's an actually code problem. I'm surprised that application ID doesn't allow for null public key token. What does it mean if the assembly isn't strong name signed? You can't have an application ID for non-strong name signed assembly?
Maybe return empty. By the way.
Application ID. So we throw argument null exception.
Okay. Yes then.
Where we throw argument null exception for a null public key token.
Yeah.
Don't have a public key, just provide an empty array. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that, just from the perspective that if you're supplying the attribute, you're expected to do public key token equals null, but
Those laptops is preparing to take off.
Yeah, I think that.
You have a null sender from an assembly load event.
yeah, I
What?
think we said that senders in general can be null.
Yeah, that's what I just wrote down. For events, we should generally accept null senders.
Why do we even accept a byte array for 2 Boolean? Oh, I guess it's because we have a start index. Seems like just accepting byte would have been sufficient.
No, but then you'd have to go through that amazing hassle of, indexing into an array.
Yeah, some APIs are questionable.
No, none of these APIs are questionable, even though they don't have questions on them. Had to contribute somehow. Jared style.
That is true. That was very Jared of you. I give you that. You do a good job. I was concerned that we miss out of dad jokes when Jared is gone. I'm glad that's not the case.
There's a no attribute there. Oh, you don't have the updated API reviewer.
Why?
Because that syntax is wrong. Because that attribute is on the return type. We added to the member with the return prefix.
I see. We should probably also fix the code emitter to strip the name attribute, maybe.
And insert a space between the attribute and the object.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like return values have not really been.
Yeah, because that should
A
really
prime
be
example
a
of
return
emitting.
colon not null with attribute.
Yeah, I just fixed that.
Okay.
Like if you look at the
Mhm.
the code that I emit locally, that's fixed.
Alright, what does it mean? Not null if not null. So if the
So if the parameter value is not null, it will not return null.
I see.
Should we add that attribute to the other two overrides, Steve?
Also,
Of
it
change
might be
type.
also it might be
The
worth
overrides of which?
Of convert change type.
Yeah, it seems like it would apply here as well, right?
Also, like it might
We'd have to look.
might be useful to ask the compiler team to accept the name of when you pass this attribute, because like it's kind of outside of the method, so you cannot pass the name of when you rename them. You cannot like you have to pass the string directly.
Well, because value is not known in that scope, right?
No, the problem is
Well,
name of
it's
you can
applied to
only.
the
Well, yeah,
methods
because
itself.
value-
Because the
value-
identifier is not.
Yeah, but then
So
that's
I agree that would be a useful thing to do, but that's a language change. That's not a compiler
Yeah.
change. That would have
A
to start
language?
an LVM.
Yeah.
Because value isn't in scope in that location.
Well, the custom attribute applies to the specific method, right? So,
I understand. Value is not in scope in that location.
but on the IL level, kind of like you have the same method handle for the string, right?
I mean, name of
Because
just
I think people are agreeing with you that it'd be useful, but it's a language change. It's not in scope currently.
Makes sense.
And to answer your question, Santi, yeah, I think we need that attribute a couple other places.
Yep.
especially as we start doing maybe null when or not null if not null. I do think that'd be a good change. Just have to come up with a set of rules that would allow the language to not break when you do that. Because what if you also had a property with that same name?
Well, then you obviously just allow im dot parameter name.
Or it kind of doesn't matter which one you find to, because it's going to produce the same string, right?
It
Matters when you
for-
refactor.
Yeah.
Ah,
So I would imagine the
Fair
best thing in that case would be to allow method name dot parameter name, just like we allow for types, and then it just resolves to the final bit.
Or just have them in scope.
Now, again, that would change code.
Yeah, that could potentially change existing code if you say it's just in scope. You have to be able to differentiate if you've also got a field called foo, for example. Because some people use this dot.
Fair enough.
There are probably several proposals on that one. People have been wanting us to make.
Yeah, like full name of them. Well,
Glad we have this DB now.
and so I did just check. It looks like everything on convert that takes an object value treats null as default. So like 2 Boolean object.
Kind of makes sense, right? You kind of have to. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to round trip nullables.
Did you say that mod provider shouldn't be should be knowable? Yeah,
Should be.
Forget it.
What's funny with the convert class too is that a bunch of these methods actually throw because they don't make any sense. But we just completely multiplied out the entire matrix.
If only we had generics in V1.
Well, only really defined for a specific set of types, right?
With convert, we almost are reviewed. We reviewed more than 1/4 of.
Two string returns null, for null. That
Yes.
How can this be true given that two string returns now? How can this be not null if not null, given that object.toString is defined as nullable?
Well, if you call
This
convert
method
to
just
string
returns the
directly,
passed in value.
But object.toString could return you a null.
Yeah. So you would then end up. So I pass you non-null value. You call object.toString. I get back a nullable value.
yeah, but if you call it with a non-nullable type, then you wouldn't get a warning.
Right, because string, it's taking a string, and strings are guaranteed to return the same value that they were had.
Oh, because you're calling it a string. I see.
Right, and the compiler
Yeah.
took a dependency on that for
Yeah.
stuff recently.
No, that makes sense. I didn't read the string. I read
String
the
is
function.
sealed,
I also
right?
read object, and I was just like,
String is sealed, right?
Huh?
String is sealed.
Yes.
yes,
Yes. But
all the base types are sealed.
but that is correct. The one that takes okay, no, sorry, never mind. The one that takes object as an input doesn't have the attribute.
Yep. So that makes sense.
There aren't any weird scenarios where you're running on like headless Linux via some like SSH or non-interactive prompt where some of these, whether some like the command line could be empty or
Command line is probably actually an empty string if you don't pass any arguments.
Yeah, I would hope for most of these we return empty string.
Current directory is probably always set.
like what if for user domain name, what if I'm not part of a domain?
Empty string.
Empty string, okay. As long as it's empty string.
If you want to have fun, return empty from new line and see what happens.
I don't like breaking the world. And expand environment variables won't return null if the environment variable doesn't exist. It'll just return an empty.
No, expand environment variables doesn't do what you think it does. But expand environment variables takes a string and basically expands everything that is question mark expand. So basically, if basically shouldn't be name, it should have been text. So you can have a string like percent path percent
Right.
semicolon blah 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 blah. So if the variable doesn't exist, it just gives you back the original string.
Okay.
It just
Does
doesn't
the
fill it in.
syntax differ
The original
between the OSs,
yeah,
or
yeah.
the syntax differ between OSs, or also like a percent on Linux, or
I don't know.
I think they just use the Windows syntax with the percent, and it's like, yeah, tough luck when you're on Linux.
Fast does not return. That seems correct.
Well, it better not return.
Exit does not return that?
well, like
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a
Exit
good point.
probably should have that attribute on it.
Yep, we don't have it in the implementation.
which one again?
Exit.
System.exit or system.environment.exit.
Yeah, I missed that.
Okay. Yeah, right. There's letters.
Yep.
It does return null.
Perfect. If the variable is not.
Get folder path never returns null. All folders are always defined. That seems
Well, so those are
Doing
special
empty.
folders.
yeah, but they don't exist on all platforms, right?
Turn string empty.
Okay.
I think there was one case where it wasn't, and we fixed it.
Because it was a bug.
Yeah. It was one of the like 3 bugs we found in all of Corelib.
I don't know what that says about this feature. It says something, but I'm not sure what.
It says something, but it also Corelib is also like, some of the most used, arguably the most used body of C# code in the world. So you would expect that most issues have already been sussed out by now.
I feel like math probably doesn't take any objects.
You feel like it, but are you willing to bet on it?
Not 100%.
I mean, keep in mind, we had an API, the token array, and an index. Not make you index into it.
It did not.
It did not.
All right, good.
I'm just going to let Tanner bet on it because I'm pretty sure.
See, Dana has been around long enough, he doesn't dare to bet on this anymore.
System.com.
Oh, God.
What does that mean?
Clone.
It orders you a new machine from Amazon.
If you don't provide a credit card, does it automatically go into the Microsoft account?
It throws credit card not supported exception.
Is platform ID not one that we mark as deprecated and refer to runtime information now?
Basically. But we basically, like, the problem is we can't entirely remove it because it's, I forgot, like, almost all of these are returned by environment. And some of them actually still make sense, some of them don't, though. We moved all the ones that don't make sense. I think these are the only reliable ones we have left.
Unix and Win32?
Yep.
What if it's Win64 and?
It says Win32NT.
Steve, string comparer, I compare and I quality compare, should that be a string without a question mark, and then the overrides should use attributes?
Sorry, where are you looking?
A string comparer at the interface implementations, I compare and I quality compare.
They seem wrong, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's right. It's, wait, losing myself. The more interesting case was when you implemented iComparable and iQuality comparable.
Oh, yeah, because you're
Those
constraining.
are the ones that we were previously talking about. For a comparer, we'd have to look again. I think this is still right. We'd have to look.
Okay, so should implementations error quality error.
I see. So it seems like, yeah, it's correct. But maybe get hash code. I get hash code in the implementation is a string non-nullable, and we have a pragma disable. But I made it a string question mark now that I was tweaking it to make it build. Should we also add a disallow null attribute to that guy to get hash code?
Why was it wrong for it to be? I think it would be string. It doesn't allow null strings, right?
No, it doesn't.
Right, so I think it's correct for it to be string non-nullable, like no question mark.
But then it couldn't match the implemented interface type parameter, right?
That's true, but that's a fundamental. I mean, well, no, it's not true because iEquality comparer has a not null attribute on the.
Yeah, disallow null attribute.
Disallow null is on get hash code. So logically, a non-null string here actually maps to that, and presumably, when the attributes are implemented, there should not be a warning there because get hash code string object correctly implements get hash code disallow null string object.
Okay, and good in implementing these interfaces with a nullable reference type cause problems like we found for iEquatable.
I don't think it does. The problem there was when you then use the type as a generic argument, right? Because there are types that will say take a t where t colon iEquatable of t.
Okay.
I don't think that's an issue here, but maybe we could come up with a case where it is.
Yeah, I just took an action item to have a follow-up question that we should answer. So it's in the notes. Resolve event handler should probably take a nullable, should probably return nullable assembly, because the docs say if you can't resolve the assembly, you should return null.
So then, yeah, it should return nullable. The docs say so, unless the docs are wrong, but they're probably not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I returned null from resolve event handler before.
So for now, I'll just disable the warning on get hash code.
Yeah.
In the references.
Yeah, it looks like we have a few places we need to fix up the attributes and internal stuff for that, but we do check whether the assembly returned from the handler is null.
Yeah.
The normalization extensions throw on null this?
Probably. I mean, they're all deprecated. They're just forward to string dot is normalized.
Yeah, they throw argument null exception.
All right.
URI builder.
Interesting that these don't take null. I feel like that's probably wrong.
Why would you say that?
Well, I mean, for one, I've called some of these constructors. Like, what if I just create a new URI builder that post?
I think it's all empty.
All empty?
I think that would be my
No,
guess.
like if you pass a null URI to URI builder, it'll throw. If you pass a null string to URI builder, it'll throw.
Okay.
I haven't looked at all of them, but I probably did when we were attributing this. Wait, is this picking up? Wait, this isn't picking up. Santi, did my PR for URI hasn't been merged yet, right?
No, so we're not picking up any changes on
Right.
URI.
So, yeah, so URI builder isn't showing the attribution because remember in the last review we realized we hadn't attributed system private URI yet.
Right.
Yeah, so we will have to revisit all URI types.
All right, cool.
All right, so then let's call it a day. I need to get lunch.
Yep.
You don't think we can do another 10,000 APIs in 3 minutes?
I don't think we can.
Safe.
I know. And then we continue on
weak.
system. Hold on.
Well, at least we finished System.Runtime.
All right, then thanks for everybody, and then Stephen, I'll see you in the next meeting.
See that?
And then I click the pause button here. Bye, folks online.